Electricast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Claudia Monticelli with another episode of my podcast, Let's Talk Soul. Today I'm with a guest. Her name is Clementine Moss. Clementine, will you say hello to our audience?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Clementine's talking to us from California today, and she's quite a character. Let me see if I can put into words a decent introduction for her without cutting out anything. All right, so Clementine Moss is an author, a rock and roll drummer, and a spiritual counselor. How can I put it? It's the devil in the bluegrass or something, it comes to mind. She's the founder and drummer of the Led Zeppelin powerhouse Zepparella, with a busy solo career as a singer and songwriter. Her book, that's entitled From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer, uses her music career as metaphor for contemplative practice. Clementine's a spiritual counselor and a non-denominational minister at the foundation of the sacred stream, using the modalities of depth hypnosis, applied shamanism, energy medicine, and sound healing techniques. Clem has an active healing practice. She's certified in contemplative psychotherapy and conflict resolution. A Vipassana meditator. Did I get that right? Did I pronounce that right?
Well, as I don't know for sure.
Is it Vipassana?
Vipassana.
Vipassana. Okay, Vipassana meditator. For over 30 years, her study and personal practice spans many traditions. Now, there's this shaman word emerging in all this. And I asked myself, because as my audience knows, I usually put out a pre-questionnaire form to potential guests. And I asked them, list 5 topics that you would be comfortable talking about. And of all of the 5 concepts she wrote, 5 topics, she didn't mention the S word, shaman or shamanism. So I'm going to ask you, should we keep that on the shelf, Clem? Or do you want to come out with that right away? You're coming out of the closet.
We can come out
here.
with that right away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shamanism is a real big word these days.
Well, it does get,
it
has both positive and negative connotations, shamanism. So let's do both if you can. Talk about both.
I will. So as I was taught by Dr. Isa Gucciardi in Berkeley, California, who that's her foundation, the foundation of the sacred stream, where she teaches her modality of depth hypnosis, which is a counseling modality that combines Buddhism, Western psychology, and shamanic method, right?
Right.
And then also traditional shamanism and what we call applied shamanism, which is a way of working with the traditional methods in a counseling model. Right?
Now we're getting to the good stuff. Okay. Yeah.
So now shamanism in a nutshell, this is if somebody doesn't know anything about shamanism. Yeah. A shaman is, 95% of humanity has a shamanic background. It is earth-based wisdom. So a shaman is someone who translates the messages they receive from the natural world, seen and unseen, to the tribe, right?
Okay, the tribe in this case would be, are you speaking of people, followers? How would you define that tribe?
I would say community. The community. So a shaman would be somebody in a traditional setting who is a part of the community, who has an ability to translate the messages of nature for the benefit of individuals and the group, right?
Okay, just a moment. Yeah, I was just telling Clem while we're talking, there's a severe winds outside and it seems like everything's falling. I was worried there for a moment. Anyway, so we were
Speaking of
talking,
nature.
speaking of nature, and since you mentioned teaching to the community, to the tribe, now, not strict followers of the shaman, but people at large, like a clergyman or woman to their community who comes and
Mhm.
flocks. Is that right?
Yeah, it's our original spirituality, right?
Okay.
Humanity's original spirituality. And,
Yeah.
for a very long time, women were included in that spiritual leadership.
Right.
And for tens of thousands of years, the drummer,
Yeah.
right? Because a shaman accesses the information of the natural world through many different ways
Right.
depending on the culture. Some use plant medicine,
Right.
some use, go off into the forest
Mm-hmm.
for long periods of time. Some use meditation,
Mm-hmm.
but using the drum as a
Right.
way to carry us into a kind of an altered state
Yeah.
is used in very many cultures. And for many, many tens of thousands of years, it was the women who were drumming.
Yeah.
It was the
It's
women who were the,
interesting
the
that you
shaman.
bring this
Hmm.
up because I was talking the other day, it might have been in an interview, um, like the drum and the vibration of the sound. The same holds true for the voice and incantations
Hmm.
and chanting.
Hmm.
The idea, especially of the vocal cords vibrating, is it really helps the soul reach a higher vibrational rate. And the
Yeah.
idea is the same. Now, how did you get into this? What's a nice like girl like you doing in a place like that? That.
Well, I started my life as a spiritual seeker,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
found Vipassana meditation, which is insight meditation.
Uh-huh.
And
Insight, can you explain that a bit more? Insight meditation?
insight. So the idea in insight meditation or Vipassana meditation, it means a way of seeing, right?
A way of
And
seeing.
it,
Hmm.
And the way that I was trained was to observe sensation,
Yes.
physical sensation,
Yeah.
in order to understand how my mind is working. So if I rest my awareness on my shoulder
You're right.
and I feel all the sensation of the shoulder,
Yeah.
and I don't react to the itchiness, the
Right.
pain, the struggle, or I don't wish that it felt a different way,
Right.
I learn a lot about my own attachments, my
Attachments.
aversions,
That's an
my
interesting.
ignorance, right? So in Buddhism, we talk about, suffering comes from wanting things to be different, wanting
Yeah.
things to be the way they were,
Hmm.
anticipating
Yes.
something we don't want, right? Those are all related to that idea of attachment and aversion. And so Vipassana just gives us a tangible way of observing nature
Hmm.
by observing our physical sensations,
Hmm.
and then learning how to, when we don't react
Yeah.
to those impulses, when we don't react to the sensation,
Yeah.
then we're in that place within ourselves, beneath the mind, beneath our desires,
Yeah.
beneath what we would call the ego or the personality.
Right.
And in that place of non reactivity is where we find that underlying peace that is at the base of existence.
Mm. Now, there were topics that you suggest, um, but they were in no way, how can I put it, expressed in the same manner. But there was a common theme, and you just finished speaking with the idea of peace and inner peace and cultivating awareness of peace, and that's a common theme that emerges in your practice, in what you do. Can you? I'm going to ask you to do something that maybe you won't like, but let's talk about a Miss or Mister X who is a, would you call them a client of yours, a
Mm-hmm.
person who comes to you for guidance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, can you give us a story? You can make it up if you like, based on your experience, and take us from when and why the person comes to you, and how you go along with them, how you decide how long and what to do with them. Would you mind sharing with us?
Yeah, so there are several ways that I work with people as a
Okay.
spiritual counselor,
Uh-huh.
right? I work as a depth hypnosis practitioner, as a
Okay. And
shamanic
can you
counselor, or
define that?
yeah,
Depth
so
hypnosis. Mhm.
okay. So, like I said, in depth hypnosis, it's a combination of Western psychological method,
Mhm.
Buddhism, and shamanism, right?
Okay.
And um, so what we're doing is, so say somebody comes to me and they have been having a sense of dread when they wake up first thing in the morning,
Okay.
and they're functioning, but they don't really understand, like, where is this feeling of
Now,
dread
isn't
coming
this,
from?
it's interesting that you say dread and not fear. Are they
Well, I'm kind
two
of speaking
different?
to the physical sensation, like
Uh-huh.
you wake up and you just have this sense of kind of impending doom. So it is a kind of
Yeah,
fear,
fear. Yeah,
right?
okay.
But
Okay.
it's like you can almost
Heavier.
feel it when you, maybe this person is feeling it when they wake up, like a sinking feeling in their stomach,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
they want to greet the day with
Right, right,
joy, but instead they wake up and every morning they're met with this just kind of low level anxiety,
right.
dread,
Anxiety.
fear,
Mhm.
right?
So they come to you and
And
they tell
so,
you this.
right, they tell me this.
Okay.
And so before we get into the work, what we have done is we have done a shamanic journey in order to connect them to an image of power,
Okay, now hang
right?
on because you're jumping
Hmm.
ahead and I'm still at the front door, the phone call. They give,
Yeah.
they knock on your
Okay.
door.
So
Now, when you
so
say
somebody
you've
comes to
done,
me.
mhm,
Yeah. Right. So
mhm,
somebody comes to me. So a shamanic journey, what I'm doing is I'm drumming.
yeah,
I'm asking them to travel in their internal world
okay,
and to ask to meet a part of themselves that has their best interest at heart. And
okay,
often for the first time, we're meeting, because it is in shamanic language, we're meeting, say, they say, well, I have this image in my mind of an owl.
okay,
Okay. And then we have them interact in their inner world. Like,
right,
can you ask the owl if the owl will protect and guide you? Right.
okay. This is while you're
Okay.
drumming.
That's right. That's
Hmm.
right. So it's a process.
Hmm.
Okay. So that would be the first session.
Good,
They've
beautiful,
connected to this part of themselves.
good.
So then they come in the next session and they say, I have this sense of dread within me when
Hmm.
I wake up in the morning and I'm functioning, but it's always kind of in the back of my mind and I can't figure out what I'm afraid of, what this
Right.
anxiety is. So the first thing we do in the session is connect to the owl. Let's
Okay.
ask the owl to be here to guide and protect you, right?
Okay.
So, okay, great. So now we do a meditation where they're very relaxed. We
Yeah.
might use the drum, but most of the time it's just a deep meditation where we're just aware of our breathing.
Hmm.
We come into that altered state that we come to in deep
Okay.
meditation.
Hmm.
Now
So,
we find that feeling of dread,
okay.
and does it seem to be located in the body? Oh, well, I feel a kind of heaviness, a sickness, sick feeling in my stomach when I
Okay.
think of that dread.
Hmm.
Okay. And then what we do is we follow that feeling of dread.
Yeah.
Either we follow that feeling of dread. So this is one option, right? There
Right.
are several ways we can go, but we
Hmm.
follow that feeling of dread to take us to maybe the first or most significant time that they were feeling that
Okay.
feeling of dread.
Yeah.
And we ask the owl to help them to
Yeah.
come to that place. right? And
Interesting.
often people will say, I had a client once who said, suddenly I have this memory. It can feel like a memory, but we ground them in the memory so that he'll say, I remember looking through the fence when my mother dropped me off at preschool the very first time.
Uh-huh.
And okay, so what shoes are you wearing? Where are you? Is there anybody around you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and kind of ground them in the experience of that, knowing that it's safe because the owl is there helping,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? So we're not re-traumatizing. And
Right.
then we encounter, what are you feeling? I'm
This
feeling
sounds,
abandoned,
part of what
right?
you're saying is similar to a past life regression, looking
We
at the
can go to the
clothing.
past life. Sometimes we can go to a past life. Sometimes we go to a place in this life. If we go to a past life, say somebody says, well, I've never been here, but I look like I'm in a kind of prison with
Right.
grass on the ground. And okay, well, then we deal with the past life, but then we always bring the same feeling. So we're traveling through the feeling. The
Right.
feeling of dread is what we're following. And
Okay.
then we move from the past life into the first time in this life that
Right.
you feel the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're asking to heal that, to understand it, to heal
Yeah.
it without re-traumatizing ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing that in connection with our own internal guidance,
Now,
right?
this is still a one-on-one session.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how long do these sessions usually last?
Most sessions are 75 minutes to 90. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that sounds similar to a past life regression session, the whole
Mm-hmm.
process. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happens? I mean, this is the second session, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah. Well,
when and how do you
yeah.
decide how to
And
proceed?
then we ask for understanding, we ask for healing, and
Hmm.
generally people recognize, like, oh wow, like I really do feel like that is similar to the feeling of dread or whatever it
Right.
is. We ask for whatever kind of healing it is, and now I'm really talking in a skeletal structure of how how this is happening, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's a lot that we're kind of doing in the process. But generally, by the end of the session, the person has come to some insights
Right.
about that feeling,
And they
has
will
come to some things. Mm-hmm.
openly speak about them. They'll
Mm-hmm.
verbalize. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're speaking. And then I'm working, also as kind of I'm working with my own guides, right? I'm a
Yeah.
shamanic practitioner, so I'm
Right.
working as well with energy and
Sure.
with my own guidance to bring healing into the situation,
So then you
and
both
then
decide
let me
on
see.
how to proceed, or how?
The we're always connected with the client's guidance.
Okay.
So now this is a difference. This is the difference between traditional shamanism
Right.
and applied shamanism. In
Okay.
traditional shamanism, the shaman is the one who's doing the work. The
Right.
shaman is going on the journey and
Right.
bringing power back to the client.
Hmm.
And while I've been trained in that, that's really the kind of work that's good for people who really can't engage for some reason. I've worked with people who, even closing their eyes, there was so much trauma. Even closing their eyes and
Yeah.
going on the journey was felt
Interesting.
traumatic, right?
Interesting.
And so in that case, we start off in traditional shamanism to be able to open the field and
Hmm.
the comfort. But what I find with depth hypnosis, and why I'm so drawn to working in this way, is that the client is the one who's finding their healing. I'm
Uh-huh.
only the guide.
I
And
see.
shamanism is about power. It's about personal
Yes.
power. It's about healing ourselves, coming into our own power. And this is a great misunderstanding these days with
Yeah.
shamanism. A lot of people believe the shaman is the powerful one. The
Yes.
shaman is doing the work. And now,
Well,
while
up
I
until
am
now,
holding space, I
this
am
was,
doing work,
we're talking
but
about ideas from, I'd like to say the 60s, where
mhm.
the shaman took on this power, and Is that, am I right there, or has that progressed far before?
Well, honestly, I think that because shamanism is about power,
Yeah,
it's also very easy for certain people who are out of alignment with their own power
you're right.
to take advantage,
Right,
right?
exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, if you are working with someone, and this is for your audience, if you're
Right,
working with someone who is not helping you empower
right.
yourself
Yes.
with your own you and letting you know that you have as much power to
Mm-hmm.
heal yourself as anything as any shaman does,
Right,
right? And not helping you cultivate that power within yourself,
right.
then you might think about working with someone else. And it's
Someone
hard
else.
because, I mean, I certainly want to meet somebody who can fix all my problems.
Oh,
You know,
sure.
I mean, it's very intoxicating to be with someone who seems to have all the
That's
answers.
the right word,
Um,
intoxicating. It
yeah.
is.
But,
Yeah.
ultimately, if we really want to step into, that joy, that open-heartedness that we all are kind of yearning to live from, that is because we're in an empowered place.
Yeah.
So someone who's helping you empower yourself is really what you want to look for.
As you were talking, I was thinking of the modern medicine man, physicians today, how much power. I'm speaking from an academic position, okay, because
Hmm.
I work in a field in the academic world where this is soft science, and the hard scientists academically get all the money. So you can see the power of a modern medicine man, the doctor, who can, with a pill, give you the power to do what they think you need to do. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating, but modern medicine does have a lot of attachments. I'll call them attachments now,
Yeah.
negative connotations attached.
Yeah, and kind of what I have to say about that is I feel like the best doctors, I have a
Yeah.
wonderful doctor, and
Hmm.
I'll come to her with the most out there
Right.
hippie stuff that because I
Yeah.
like to do it all, right? I
Right. Yeah.
like the Western medicine, I
Sure.
like the Eastern medicine, I
Sure.
like it all. Like if I'm broken, like I want to try everything.
Right. Right.
And I'll come to her and I'll say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And she's open to hearing about it.
Good.
She'll research it herself. She doesn't immediately discount it.
Hmm.
And we have a conversation,
Right.
but I really do bow to her knowledge about the way my body works because she's
Interesting.
been
Hmm.
studying it.
Can
Right.
you
And
give us an
so
example
I think
there?
that that's kind of that I think that, I think about my mother-in-law who's a generation older than me,
Uh huh.
and she was really somebody who just accepted everything the doctor said.
Yes.
And her
There you
doctor
go.
was,
Hmm.
she had doctors who were out of alignment with their power.
Right.
They
Right.
didn't listen to what she wanted. They
Right.
just tried to get her to, right. And so
Right.
I think we need to take responsibility for our own
Yeah.
stuff
This
in
is
conjunction and
this
find
is it.
somebody who
This
wants to work
is the
with us.
big
Yeah. Yeah.
issue I find when
Hmm.
working with people in general, that not everybody is ready to take responsibility for their own issues or even understand them, and do want to, give the responsibility.
Well,
Uh,
it's
uh,
hard. It's hard. I
yeah,
mean,
it
we
is
really
hard.
have to be
Mm.
discerning. And I mean, I'm not a medical doctor. I wasn't
Yeah,
trained in it. So
sure.
there is a lot I have to really try to place my faith in what my doctor does have to say. And
Sure.
yet I also have some power to really say, okay, I don't know about that. Let me go read a whole bunch of stuff and come
Right.
back to her and say,
Right.
hey, but all these
Yes.
people are saying that, and see what she has to say. Right.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
interesting. Clementine, when did you publish your book? The date?
It was February 22nd of
Mhm.
2023,
Oh,
this
this
year.
year it's brand new. It's a brand new
Brand new.
baby. Woo, woo, woo. Well, and how is it going? How is the say? How are the sales going? I ask a terrible question, but are you pleased with
Yeah.
what has come out?
Yeah, I wrote this book as a way, I have this rock and roll life
Right,
and I
sure.
have my contemplative life, and
Hmm.
this writing is, I wanted to use my music life as a metaphor
Sure.
for how we walk around in the world with we sit on the meditation mat, we go to the shaman, we do all of this stuff. And then how do we live in the world with that stuff?
Right. Right.
How does it start translating into our
Sure.
daily life, even
Sure.
into a life where I'm, getting on stage and playing hard rock?
And my
you know,
question to you now goes,
yeah.
had you ever written something of that kind? Or because, being in the musical
hmm
world, do you compose or do you write music or
hmm
verses, songs? Uh, you're used to that.
Yeah.
How was it writing the book?
Well, the book started actually as I started a blog called Bliss and
Yes.
Drumming, I think in 2016.
Uh-huh.
And it was stories exactly of that. I would come
Yeah.
back from a weekend and I would notice all of my attachments, all
Yeah.
of my aversions that had come up,
Yeah.
all of the
Yeah.
the internal stuff that had happened.
Yeah.
Okay. So the blog was about just exactly what the book ended up being about, which
Ah,
was and some of the pieces from the blog ended up in the book. At first, I thought the book was just going to be a collection of blog pieces,
yeah.
but once I started getting it together, I was like, oh, I got to write a lot more and make it
What
into a
isn't it
book.
amazing when you start the project and then all of a sudden, your pen, your hands, you're on the keyboard, they just get into something. I've got to say that, and then you start thinking, where am I going to put that? How do I rearrange the book? It's interesting writing.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
have
it really is.
plans to do a follow up or something new in terms of, books?
Yeah, I'm always writing,
Yeah.
and I have ideas for
Hmm.
things, and I'm just kind of letting. It's funny. The book came out, and I just got really busy with, I want to give it everything I have. It's
Sure.
self-published, so I'm trying to do,
Yeah.
podcasts and talk about the
Sure.
book, and
Sure.
and then with my music career, there's a lot going on. But I feel like, I hope another book is coming. I do have a children's book that's kind of sitting with a publisher right now, hoping,
Uh-huh.
we're crossing our fingers that they pick it up,
And why
and that
why
would be great.
a children's book? Why did that come out? Any reason specific?
Yeah, it was. It's a book to help children deal with the death of a pet.
Right. Interesting.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of is a long kind of series of circumstances. I wrote it with my dear mentor in New York. She's a
Uh-huh.
spiritual teacher, and
Hmm.
I wrote the book with her.
Hmm.
And her cat kind of shows up in the book.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
This is so
hmm
interesting. It was so lovely to talk to you, Clementine. I just want to repeat the name of your book, which is called "From Bonham to Buddha and Back: The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer." Drummer. And I'm sure, and you could find her um, at her website, which is clemthegreat.com, but I will put that in the episode notes. Thank you so much for coming. And when you get another book or something that you would like the world to know about, contact me again and we'll have a nice
Oh,
chat.
thank you so
You're
much,
welcome.
Claudia. Thank you. What a
It's a
what a what a
pleasure.
joyful conversation. Thank
It
you for all the
was
great
really
questions.
pleasant. Bye bye, Clem.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow Let's Talk Soul podcast on Instagram. Let's Talk Soul podcast is a production of Electrocast Media. Our executive producers are Mark Netter and Peter Rafelson. If you like our show and like what you hear, please subscribe and give us a rating wherever you enjoy podcasts. And remember, stay curious, stay inspired, and never stop exploring the depths of your soul.
Hey, it's Tim from 50 Years of Music with 50-Year-Old White Guys, the comedy podcast you had no idea you needed. Join Ben, Jeff, and me as we continue our musical road trip back through the years and around the globe. See, just when you thought all white guys were like Joe Rogan, you come across three educators trying to remember when we were cool.
50 years of music with 50-year-old white guys.
Electricast.